Hi, this is Jeff Coburn. We welcome you to Disney Insights Podcast. As 2025 comes hurling toward an end, can you believe it's already November? A new attraction arrives at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Zootopia Better Zoogether is now in the Tree of Life Theater and offers something new for this park, which begs for more attractions and experiences. At a great time to do so, as this time of year is the best time of year to visit the park, which is free of heat and humidity and exhaustion. The new show replaces It's Tough to Be a Bug, which premiered with the park and was based on It's a Bug's Life, the second film created by Pixar after Toy Story. This new show is based on Disney's Zootopia and Zootopia 2 and brings you into the dynamic world of Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde. We look at the origins, then experience the show during early previews, where we walk the queue indoor and out. Then it's on to see the show, where we offer a spoiler-free synopsis with a comparison of what works and maybe what doesn't. Beyond this, we look at what could be next for both Zootopia and for Disney's Animal Kingdom. So, hey, join us for this new zoo review coming right at you. This podcast is produced by myself and Performance Journeys, offering training, development, and consultant support to organizations big and small and entrepreneurs new and established. With a wide variety of resources and long-time in-the-trench experience, we provide workshops, online learning, coaching, seminars, so much more to organizations that want to build their teams, raise organizational excellence, improve leadership, and create for customer loyalty. Check us out at performancejourneys.com. And please support us by not only subscribing to this podcast, but offering up a rating, review, or referral to others. Really do appreciate those who take the time to do so. Be sure to check out Disney Insights, where we offer key points, photos, videos, links, and more. And note that YouTube now carries our podcast, so please subscribe to our Disney Insights YouTube page, as it will be more a part of our social media strategy moving forward. Everyone listening to this podcast, make sure you subscribe to YouTube, because we have so many things to offer there. And we welcome any positive thoughts and comments that you may have to share with us. Now, without further ado, let's talk about Zootopia Better Zoogether. And to do so, we have to begin with its origins. Both the origins of the attraction and that space there on Discovery Island at the Tree of Life, but also the film and story origins. Now, back in March, As Tough to Be a Bug closed. We did a major podcast, and you can find a link to it in our show notes on DisneyInsights.com. There I spoke of the following. I talked about the origins of how actually the Tree of Life came to be, the other things that were considered, the other possibilities of what could be underneath the Tree of Life, which included the Lion King and other possibilities, and how the show came to be, because at the same time, Pixar was working on It's a Bug's Life. And Eisner, knowing that, had recommended that to the team. And I also talked a lot about what I miss about the show. I do, by the way, I love It's a Bug's Life. It needs to almost be re-rendered. Some of these early Pixar films have just they show their age in terms of what they were it was pioneering back in its time, but now they kind of show their age. But the story and the characters are really wonderful in It's a Bug's Life. And so I was very comfortable with the idea of having a show there at Disney's Animal Kingdom. But and so there's elements that I really kind of miss about the show, and there were things I don't miss about the show. I think it was too creepy and scary for little children, and every show had little children as assuredly as it did spiders. And the two never did match up well together. And I always felt bad for those poor children who were just absolutely freaked out by the show. In fact, I realized the other day that my adult daughter, who's high-functioning autistic, she has actually never seen the show. I thought she had. I thought at some point she had seen it, maybe decided not to come back, but she has actually never seen the show because she knew of all the elements. So those things I won't miss about the show. And then I also talked a little bit about the future of the new Zootopia show coming in. Now, in terms of Zootopia, does one need to see the movie? There are a lot of attractions where I would say you don't have to see the movie to appreciate the attraction. But in this case, I'm going to tell you, yeah, you need to see it. If you want to appreciate it, other than just seeing something very frenetic and colorful and 3D moving in front of your face, you need to watch the film. I was surprised when my wife and I, we took the time before we did the previews over with Club 33. We took the time to watch the show the night before, and I had forgotten a lot about the backstory of how Zootopia comes to be. And that backstory plays a big role. It really highlights the origin stories of how animals came from being predators to becoming pals. And it also speaks of how Zootopia is a place of many biodomes. And you have these different kind of worlds all within this large metropolis, whether it's Savannah Central or the Canyonlands or Sahara Square or Rainforest District or Meadowlands or Tundra Town, and then actually downtown itself. All of these play out in the film, and they do play out in the 3D movie. So getting a sense of the context, because you just go from one place to the other very quickly in the show, you definitely want to check out. And honestly, Zootopia is a great movie. You really ought to check it out. You also become familiar with film stars, Judy Hopps, the little bunny who wants to be a police officer, and Nick Wilde, a fox who becomes friends with Judy over the course of the film. And then you also see how individuals like Officer Clawhauser, Chief Bogo, Flash Slothmore, and Gazelle, you see how they all relate to the film because they're all showing up in this 3D experience. And then you also see the antagonist that was in the original film and appreciate where that original story came from. Now, not only may one want to see, I think you definitely need to see Zootopia. It may very well be that you also want to see Zootopia 2, which is coming out in theaters this Thanksgiving. In the film, as I understand it, rookie animal cops, Judy Hopps and now Nick Wilde, they come face to face with the mysterious pit viper, Gary the Snake, whose arrival disrupts the balance of the metropolis. To save the case, they must go undercover to new parts of the town we didn't see in the original Zootopia show, testing their partnership and also asking if reptiles belong as well in Zootopia. Now, we don't see Gary the Snake in the new film. At least I don't remember seeing it. He didn't stand out at all in what went very quickly across the screen. However, the new parts of town, particularly when we get into Sahara Square, I don't think we really showed much of that in the original Zootopia. Marshlands, I know, was definitely not there. And I don't remember a lot of Tundra Town, or at least the part that you're going to see play out in this 3D film. So in other words, there's a lot in the new film that is part, and there's some characters that are in the new film that are also playing out. So you're going to want to check this out. So does one need to see the new movie? Maybe not, but you would better appreciate Marsh Market and some of the characters there. One of these characters at Marsh Market is Nibbles Maplestick, a beaver, and he has this conversation with a walrus. I don't know if I've learned his name. It's very funny, and it's very 3D, and one of the better parts of the film, actually. So, yeah, if you get a chance to see both, do so. Definitely at least see the original film. Now, with that in mind, let's walk through this experience, starting with the queue. And if you'll recall, the queue for Tough to Be a Bug was just across, well, just as in the middle of Discoveryland. As most guests were kind of heading toward either Asia or Discoveryland, you would see it there on the left. I don't think the signage was beautiful, but I don't think the signage really stood out. I will say, the new signage, it stands out. says very clearly the Tree of Life Theater presents Zootopia Better Zoogether, and then it designates that there are 2 lanes by which you can enter, a standby entrance and a lightning lane. Now, here's the interesting thing. In the signage, the standby entrance is surrounded by, or is kind of held up by Officer Klauhauser. He takes care of that sign, and then the lightning lane sign is taken care of by the sloth character, Flash Slothmore. And it's really kind of funny because if you know Zootopia, and by the way, this is one of the reasons why you need to see the film, the sloths are very funny, especially when they go to the driver license bureau. They play out in a very funny way. But the fact that the sloth is with the lightning lane is kind of funny in terms of its combination. What's even more funny is when we get into the film, both they kind of choose a person out of the audience to participate, and the camera goes on to Slothmore, and he slowly in his way begins to get excited about it when all of a sudden Klauhauser steps in front and says, "Oh, it's me," and then Klauhauser steps on stage, and he actually becomes an animatronic who stands in the place where Hopper used to be in the 3D show. So, but what's interesting about that, if you hadn't thought about it, is that both of them, whether or not they had gone through the standby entrance or the lightning lane, both end up in the audience at the same time for the same show, which basically tells you that you do not need a lightning lane for Zootopia. I'm sure in the first initial weeks or whatever, there's going to be bigger crowds for certain showings toward the middle of the day. But by and large, I never saw that for Tough to Be a Bug. Rarely saw it, if ever, maybe once, maybe twice, but seldom ever saw it. And I just really think you really don't need to use a lightning lane. So that was standing. I think the 2 being the characters kind of sends that backhanded message that you really are going to all end up in the audience at the same time. There's another thing I should mention. Of course, you kind of go by some of the animal exhibits as you move through the outdoor queue. But as you get closer to the tree, there are framed walkways, overhead frames with covered nets. This has been done over time since an event happened, and I want to say maybe 10 years ago, when one of the branches fell out of the Tree of Life. And a branch falling out of a tree is heavy. A branch falling out of the Tree of Life made out of concrete or plaster or whatever it might be is really heavy. And so for a time they had these framed walkways and these covered nets just to protect the guests from being injured during that time. However, now, and then they kind of went away, and sometimes they'd come back and sometimes they went away. Now they are there in a very major manner all around the tree. And the thought that came to me as I was looking at this, and I show you an image of it on Disney Insights, the thought I had about this, and some of them were actually quite a ways away from the tree, really, but I wondered if perhaps a big Tree of Life renovation could be happening soon. After all, we're coming up in, the park was opened in 98. We're coming up on 2028. That's 30 years. Attractions get rehabbed over years. Castle has been rehabbed many, 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 many times. And something as complex as the Tree of Life could be underway, undergoing a renovation in the not too distant future. That's not official, but when I see all these frames up, it makes me think that they've got something bigger in mind moving forward. As you get to the show's entrance, you actually get a frame-by-frame reference to what is going on in the plot, or what is the context of everything happening here. And what it is that there's some text that goes with it. Let me read it. Thousands of years ago, natural forces ruled our world. The world was divided in two. vicious predators and meek prey. But over time, we evolved and moved beyond our ancient wild ways. Our ancestors came together in harmony and declared anyone can be anything. Happy Zoogether Day. On Zoogether Day, we unite to celebrate the special connection shared among all living things. So that's the context of what is Zoogether Day, because they say, Zoogether, Zootopia's Zoogether together, or together Zoogether. Better Zoogether, that's what it is. Zootopia Better Zoogether. As the title of it, Zoogether is actually a reference to Zoogether Day. And you can get this context as you come into the plot. And by the way, it is shared in the original film, but you got to pay attention because it's actually a part that comes up very early in the film. We went, and again, it was preview, so there were some shrubs covering up some other areas. One of them was the Jane Goodall David Graybeard Chimpanzee Memorial. That was covered up. Not sure if that had something to do with something else, some rehab. By the way, I assume they are going to have the two characters, Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde, actually do meet and greets. I assume that might be very close to where the entrance is. I only say that because you'll recall, even though it had nothing to do with It's Tough to Be a Bug, but characters from Up were appearing in that area. So I thought maybe they would be using that as a dedicated character meet and greet area. I've yet to see that, but I'm sure within a day or two we'll see that. And I hope to be there actually to see the attraction again in the next day or two. But at any rate, from there you enter the Tree of Life Theater. And it's always been the Tree of Life Theater, but they're very clear that this is the Tree of Life Theater. It's kind of suggests that shows kind of come and go over time. But even when you step in, the lights in the theater, if you look up, they cross-reference Zootopia with the Tree of Life. You see shadows of different Zootopian animals standing in front of the Tree of Life that are silhouetted by the lamp itself. I show this on DisneyInsights.com. And there you're handed carrot-colored glasses. This is aligned with the idea that the film is in carrot vision. So it's a whole new color from others, yellow and purple and other color glasses we've had in 3D films. By the way, because they got rid of Muppet Vision 3D, there's been a lot of talk about the idea, 3D. And because they have announced that they're removing 3D glasses from Ratatouille at Walt Disney World and Epcot, there's been a lot of thought that maybe 3D experiences were going away. But I assure you, they could have not done this as a 3D, and they have chosen to do it as 3D. So I don't think 3D is going away necessarily. Within the queue, it will look very familiar because it is the inside of the Tree of Life, and you'll recall there were traces of bugs and their life. You were kind of in the middle of a ant pile, so to speak, if you an ant hill kind of thing, where bugs were hanging out and so forth. So signs, however, have been changed out and a lot of retheming here in this area, and it's all very purposeful. Signs suggest some of the major events to be played out in the Zoogether show event. And so you'll see references to Gazelle or to the Shrew Angels, similar to the angels that are part of the Navy that fly over in North Florida. But they're called Shrew Angels, and they're little mice flying drones. So, but there are other signs representing all the different acts or the different experiences you're supposed to go to, because you're actually going to see a live telecast of Zoogether Day going to different places in Zootopia. There is, you remember the original dung ball, created for It's Tough to Be a Bug, that big ball. It hasn't gone away, but it has a different purpose. There is a sort of paw pact that was made on the first Zoogether Day, and it was made on this rounded ball that has no reference now to being a dung ball, but it sure looks like the original dung ball from. So what you see is all these different size hoofs and paw prints that are on the ball. Access to the theater is afforded to also see on one place. You see this you know how if you watch the film, you know there are suction areas where the rodents get sucked up and move from one place to the other. Here's a suction area that delivers rodents right to the entrance to the theater where they can come in. There's a little trash can right next to them. There's a little bin with 3D glasses before they go in to see their show. Then probably the centerpiece, which is very funny, is that Pandora jewelry, yes, that sounds very similar to Pandora Journey, has its own showcase tailored to the animal within you. And there you see different characters, giraffes and beaver and others, and you see customized Pandora jewelry tailored specifically for them and their lifestyle. Very clever, very cute. Don't know how tied together it is officially with Pandora, but it really is a very clever element. On the other side is a backstage bulletin board. Because it's a theater, it shows lots of references. In fact, some key story issues come to our attention on this. Yeah, there's references to other kinds of shows going on. In fact, I have one person posts totally legit DVDs for sale. The Little Marsh Maid in Gato floats in for Mulan, The Emperor's New Hooves, that kind of thing. The Three Caballos. So you see references, National Geographic Expeditions, things like that. But you also see this little article from the Zootopia Times. And if you read the article, you'll learn that ZPD, Zootopia Police Detectives, Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde are going to serve as honorary grand marshals for the Zoogether Day parade. So that kind of gives you a context of why they are showing up, and they're not just sleeping in or doing something else on that day. They are there to serve as honorary grand marshals for the parade. And then there's also notice of an extensive mammal hunt ongoing in the wake of last week's stunning prison break. Now, again, I'm trying to be spoiler-free here, but if you go back to the original Zootopia, you realize somebody got arrested at the end of the film. And this is a reference to that individual having broken out of prison. Anyway, lots of great little references all through the lobby. And at that point, we enter the Tree of Life Theater. And as you look up, you also see that the theater holds the paw prints of all the animals together. They are all placed throughout. And really, the seats and the theater itself looks very identical to. It still gives you the feeling that you are within the Tree of Life. In fact, actually, you have, and I show an image of this, the image looking up within the tree, way up within the tree, because it is hollow going up in the tree. You can actually have a much better image of that. And you also see some fans that are going to be used for 4D effects. But at any rate, you step into a theater that looks pretty much like before. They have not done a lot of changes to the lobby and theater other than lighting and theming, but it is still physically the same thing. And as you sit down, the whole thing is introduced to you. First of all, they give you instructions, which are instructions given by the film, not by the host of the show, because technically this is about zoo animals doing all this, not some human being in there. And so the human element is taken out in this. There is somebody from cast, like some cast member on hand, but here you are given instructions for wearing your glasses and so forth. And then there is a new character named Heidi Howler. She is the host of Zoogether Day, and this kind of, if you imagine, kind of television event where we're going to go from location to location to location to see how we're celebrating on Zoogether Day our communal existence. And as she puts it, Zoogether Day is a day to celebrate our communal existence, our shared environment, and our sacred responsibility to party. At that point, 4D effects start happening. And the film proceeds. Well, first of all, they choose somebody special from out of the audience to come help with the show. And again, it was Sloth, but Hauser gets in the way. And so he ends up showing up as an animatronic on the side. It's fascinating to watch Heidi Hauser and Klauhauser talking to each other, because one's a 3D image and one's an animatronic. But it is very convincing. And we begin to visit locations. And as we see these different locations, by the way, something happens with the special effects as they start to party, and Heidi Hauser is temporarily blown away by graffiti, for lack of a better term. And so Klauhauser has to kind of take over with helping out, going to these different locations and showing us what's happening on the screen. And the first place we go to is Tundra Town. And there we have these Russian polar bears, so to speak, and they are doing this beautiful skating routine on ice, but all of a sudden the ice starts to melt and things start going wrong. All of a sudden, we see Judy and Nick show up. What's going on here? They go on over to Marsh Market. Now, Marsh Market is essentially a marsh, but we see when we get there, it's kind of all dried out. And the walruses within Marsh Market are kind of just wading in the mud of it. And there ends up being this conversation between the new beaver character that's in Zootopia 2 that I mentioned earlier, and one of these walruses, and it's quite funny. But at any rate, so that goes on, and then we hop on over to Rodentia, where the Shrew Angels, which are these mice on drones, all of a sudden they're going wrong and they're going all different directions, and they pick up I think her name is Frou Frou from the original film, and that goes all kind of crazy. And then they get to Gazelle's concert, where all of a sudden animals are getting blown away by a large fan. So you go to these 4 different places and things are going wrong, and Judy and Nick are trying to figure it out. When they finally get back to the main stage theater, which is there in the Tree of Life, they realize who the enemy is, and I won't give it away. But if you know the film, it might not be too surprising. At any rate, it was a little surprising to me, actually. But at any rate, and thus our ZPD detectives, Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde, who were there to serve as honorary grand marshals, have now saved the day in their hunt to figure out why Zoogether Day was being ruined. And all that leads into a sort of celebration finale, which has a new song that really speaks to the idea of let's work together to make the world a better place. That is the theme. That's the message. It's not overly complex, but that's exactly what really this is all about. Now, thoughts and comparisons. When I talked about Bug's Life back in March and as it went away, there were 4 things I noted that I really didn't like about the film. First off, the film was a poor quality of print. That had to do with where computer graphics animation was at that time period back in 98. It also is linked to the second problem I had, which was it was unfamiliar because in Tough to Be a Bug, only 2 characters from A Bug's Life actually appeared in the film. It was Flick and Hopper. All the other characters are not in A Bug's Life. Why is that? Partly because at the point they had to start on that 3D film to get it ready for opening, they didn't have all the other characters in the film for A Bug's Life determined and figured out. The other aspect of it, and this lends toward the quality of it too, the quality of the animation, is that they were overwhelmed. I give a big story about this and the powerful impact it had on Pixar at the time, but they were sandwiched between trying to finish that film, A Bug's Life, and they had then suddenly committed themselves to doing Toy Story 2, which was going to be direct to video, but John Lasseter felt it ought to be direct to theater, which was a good choice because that's my favorite Toy Story film is Toy Story 2, but it overdid the staff. And one of the solutions to that was get a third party to do Tough to Be a Bug. So characters you don't really know, a lesser quality CG. I felt the film was too short. It was 9 minutes compared to the times of other films at that time. I'm trying to remember. I wrote down at some point how long the other films were, like 12 minutes comes to mind. Oh, here it is. So Filler Magic's at 12 minutes. Muppet 3D was at 15. Captain EO was at 17. And Honey, I Shrunk the Audience was at 23 minutes. So 9 minutes seemed really short compared to the other 3D films. By the way, I just wanted to do a little bit of an aside to say that somebody else did a discussion about how Muppet 3D changed 3D in a major way and was the turning point for 3D films. I have to politely disagree and say Captain EO was that thing. I mean, Captain EO created the 3D experience in a film, in a Disney park. And I think it's the thing that really makes Now, Muppet 3D had some great gags in it, some of which you didn't see before. And in fact, all of these films have had some new gag added to it, some new effect or something. And this one, we'll get to that in a minute. But at any rate, the old film was too short. And also, as I mentioned earlier, it was too scary. It was just every time I was there, some child was frightened out of their socks, and the doors opened wide outside, and the kid was carried out, and it just lost everything. So, anyway, those were my thoughts and comparisons on the old show. So what do I love about this new show? First off, while the queue is in an overhaul, it still looks like the interior of the Tree of Life. What they have there is fun, and there's lots of clues and lots of little details that make that kind of fun while you're waiting. Second, the quality of the 3D imagery in this film rocks. It is amazing how colorful and clear and 3D-like the imagery is in this film. It works. It is impressive. And the 4D effects that go with the film, some of them work more effectively than ever. There is air blown out from t-shirt guns and from confetti. There is steam that's blowing out at one point. There's water squirting out at one point too. A lot of water, but it's a very funny scene. Rodents that are on the run. So remember, your seat is still up for grabs as a 4D effect. And then there's an antagonist fate at the end that's very cool. The show itself has lots of details and activity. I use the word frenetic. It just moves. It is going. It's a constant thing. And the show is fun for everyone. It's not scary. It is chaotic, and it's being frenetic, like kind of Muppet Vision was kind of chaotic in its own way. But it's really quite fun, and everyone can come and enjoy this film. And honestly, it's the right place for Zootopia to show up at Disney's Animal Kingdom. It's a center. Each of the themed lands, such as Africa and Asia or even Pandora, they all deal with a particular region, and Zootopia is about all these animals coming together. So Discovery Island is really the only place you can really do that unless you build your own Zootopia land at Disney's Animal Kingdom, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. Now, with all those things that I think are really working, there's some things that are not working. First is the show's not really innovative. The 3D quality is great, but the 4D effects have been there, done that before. Nothing that is a surprise in terms of the 4D effects. The show is too, how do I put it, story-driven. When you make the story plot or the arc a whodunit outcome, then it creates the impression that the film is really all about, well, who did it? And once you know that, is it worth watching again? And it is worth watching again and again and again. There's lots of details in it. But when you take a whodunit approach, it leaves you kind of initially thinking, well, do I need to come back because I know who did it? As I mentioned, the show is often too frenetic. That makes it worth coming back again and again. That's okay. But at times, it was difficult to hear the words, especially with the mice in Rodentia. And still at 9 minutes, it's really hard to process. So the film is not any longer or shorter than the old film was. I will say the film goes through a lot because if you remember, Tough to Be a Bug was really one setting, one stage. This one goes throughout Zootopia here and there and so forth, all these different places. By the way, there's a map in the queue. You want to look at it. I show an image on DisneyInsights.com of Zootopia, and it'll show you where all the spots are that they're going to go through during the Zoogether Today live show. But so that's so it's kind of good that there's so much to see, but it's sometimes you just I feel like I missed something. And then I have to say, Officer Clawhauser is not nearly as interesting as Hopper. Hopper was a very advanced animation. Darn that we are missing that one because it was impressive how it moved and how it really kind of felt like it was a grasshopper. That's a real miss. I'm glad they have an animatronic there, but he doesn't really contribute that much to the show. And then I think the last thing about it is the show, I don't want to say it fails to inspire. It does talk about a shared communal existence. It does talk about a shared environment. These are really good themes. Honestly, really good themes we need in our society today. And in that regard, I like the film because in a very fun, very playful way, it brings out those themes. Maybe I wanted to have them hit those themes a little harder, or maybe to feel something more as a result of that you felt like you wanted to do more to let down the fences and be more of a community with other people and to share your environment. I didn't walk away feeling that. Maybe after I see it several times, maybe I'll feel differently. I just didn't feel it the first time going through. So that was kind of, for me, a little bit of a hit and miss. Now, what else is there moving forward? First of all, let's talk about Zootopia. I believe that Zootopia should have a land presence at Walt Disney World. It is fantastic at Shanghai Disney. And people who have gone there really loved it. Sometimes it's a little hit and miss on the ride itself, which depends on screens, a little bit like Ratatouille. Depends on screens. So, but notwithstanding the whole town, I mean, there are just some things that are just great place-making themes. And I think there is that Walt Disney World is big enough and far enough away from Shanghai to host its own Zootopia. I think it or Disneyland ought to have it, and there are a lot of things Disneyland's still waiting to get. So I think it really needs to come to Walt Disney World. It offers place-making possibilities of its own with diverse biodomes to really interact and discover. That said, I think the word is out that Joe Rohde felt very strongly as kind of the godfather of Disney's Animal Kingdom that didn't belong in Disney's Animal Kingdom, that it needed to be about animals. It's not to say that animals who are like humans or that anthropomorphic, did I say that right? Oh my gosh, doesn't show up in different ways. You kind of get that with, Timon talking, during Circle of Life, or Nemo in that show and so forth. But my feeling is that a Zootopia land would be fantastic at Disney's Hollywood Studios. There's a couple of places where that could show up really well, particularly between where Disney's animation, newly revised Magic of Disney Animation is, and the space that leads out to Rock and Roller Coaster that will now be with the Muppets. I could see that as having a great Zootopia space. And remember, big films like Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, even Frozen, they have attractions in multiple parks. You go to see the sing-along at the studios, and then you go see Frozen Ever After, the ride at Epcot. Why not do more of that in as it relates to Zootopia? So, long and short, I feel like this is good, but I think another bigger presence of Zootopia would be a really good idea. The second is, I think there is a need for more to Disney's Animal Kingdom offering. As mentioned in my previous podcast where we went through the themed entertainment attractions numbers from 2024, good things are stable and even increasing at studios and Epcot and Magic Kingdom. But as mentioned in last week's podcast, attendance is vastly short at Disney's Animal Kingdom. It's down from 13 million plus in 2019 to only 8 million plus. Way down in 2024. It was 8 million. This offering is going to help, but it will stabilize the number. Maybe it's not going to lift the numbers. Now, of course, we've got other things such as Encanto and the new Indiana Jones ride. That is going to dramatically lift it, just as Pandora dramatically lifted it up to 13 million. So that's all really good stuff to come. But that's a couple of years away, 27 at least, maybe 28. Good news is there's a Disney's Animal Kingdom Judy and Nick meet and greet. My thought is maybe testing the Zoogether concept. There needs to be a couple of other Zoogether things going on at Discovery Island. Could you create a sort of Zoogether party at Pizza Safari and just redo that into some kind of Zoogether thing? Could you have a Zoogether parade or procession or something that comes along the streets? Animal Kingdom used to have one of the most beautiful parades with incredible floats, lots of fun Disney animals. Could a Zoogether parade or some other parade come back to Disney's Animal Kingdom? I did see that there are some new nighttime hours coming. That's huge. If you want to get your numbers up, you got to stay open longer. And so I'm really happy. I hope that in the next couple of days, I get to be at Animal Kingdom in the evening hours, because I really love to explore Pandora during that time or see the Tree of Life showings that happen. And also, while I talk about nighttime showings, the Rivers of Light had its challenges, but I think it could be tweaked. It could be improved upon. I think there needs to be a nighttime show that drives people to stay in the park in the evenings, which drives up your attendance. So I think that's kind of the opportunity there. Did I love the new Zootopia Together show? I'm not there yet. Did I like it? Yes. Do I think it's better than what was there? Yes. Did I think the old one needed to move on? Yes. All of those are yeses. I think there's good things about this. I think there's a repeatability aspect of it that needs to be before you can really appreciate it. But not, and I could see us 15, 20 years ago using phrases and keywords and songs from this show. And it becomes part of our common language, just as we used to with Muppet 3D. How many phrases have we taken out of that show? So it's all possible, but we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully you'll try it. I'd love to hear what you think about it. Now, this podcast hopefully has made you realize you need help and support in planning your next trip to Disney. So David and Leah with Zanola Travel know Disney in ways few do, and they can make your next trip on land or sea an exciting one, at least a little less stressful. So hey, reach out to them as you explore your next vacation. It could be a Disney theme park vacation, or it could be a cruise, even non-Disney cruise, or it could be an adventure by Disney. There's so many choices out there, but those kinds of choices need to involve a travel planner. They don't charge to utilize their services, but they will save you enormous time and give you insights you need. So hey, reach out to Zanola Travel. For those of you who love the kinds of concepts and ideas that we cover in this show, make sure you check out my books from Disney Leadership and You to the Wonderful World of Customer Service at Disney Now in its second edition, to A Century of Powerful Disney Insights, Volume 1, The Walt and Roy Disney Years. Check those books out because they will give you new insights to the incredible worlds of Disney. Now, finally, this podcast and post was provided by myself and Performance Journeys, celebrating more than 20 years as a training and development group, bringing best in business ideas through books, keynotes, workshops, seminars, and online tools. Hey, if you need a keynote speaker, more than just nice stories, I offer proven insights and solutions. And by the way, yes, stories about Disney that will inspire you and your organization. If you need consulting, let's just talk. Reach out to me. I've worked for decades across the public, private, and nonprofit arena. I know the challenges and issues organizations big and small go through. If you need support from classroom, online, or other resources, we can provide it too. If we're talking about customer service, leadership, development, employee development, engagement, hey, reach out. Let's talk. Finally, thanks for joining us in this podcast. Know that as in the title, Performance Journeys, it is just as much about the journey as it is about performance. Find the second star to the right and keep going straight on till you reach it. Follow the compass of your heart and know with a smile and a song, a little faith, effort, and pixie dust, your dreams can come true. After all, if we can dream it, we can do it. Until next time, bright suns. We'll see you real soon.